Libertarian presidential candidate Gary Johnson. Governor, good to have you.
Great to be with you, Neil.
What do you make of this? The fear that many have of a Libertarian candidate, love you though they might, is that you have a hands-off attitude when it comes to terror.
Well, no, look, government has a fundamental responsibility to protect us against those that would do us harm. When it comes to the American people, I mean, that ought to be the focus, is the United States not getting involved in regime change. You know,
where would a President Johnson get involved in something like this? Would you help the Belgian authorities? Would you provide manpower, intelligence? What? Well,
by help, certainly understand what's transpiring in Europe. Certainly they're learning lessons from all this. They have ideas about how you move forward in preventing this. But that collaboration between the United States and, yeah, the countries where it's happening in Europe, you know, this is an ongoing world issue.
All right. Now, Governor Pence called it a war last night. Do you agree with that?
Well, by war, I know a lot was said last night about Syria and providing safe zones in Syria, but limiting immigration from Syria. I mean, if we really want to do the humanitarian thing here, we'll bear responsibility for part of what's happening in Syria and take our share of those Syrian refugees, as opposed to putting troops on the ground to monitor safe zones that ultimately are going to result in our men and service women losing their lives, or putting them in that Civil War crossfire.
The argument for those safe zones, as I'm sure you're aware, Governor, not that anyone likes the idea of committing troops to this sort of thing, is it saves or potentially wards off bad guys coming here.
Well, or that you create these safe zones and then you create an easy target. So there's unintended consequences with regard to all of this stuff. But somehow we're omnipotent when it comes to all of this, and we always decide what's best.
You're very leery of using force to force our way.
Well, I'm very leery that when we involve ourselves in civil wars, when we become the world's policemen, that it never ends up with the consequences that we intend.
So
always noble.
Tim Kaine was saying that you know, Iraq didn't want us to stay there, didn't want our soldiers to stay there. And so if a country doesn't want you, why are you staying there?
Well, another example of that was Japan many years ago. Sure. when the election was held, and part of the election was, well, getting the U.S. presence greatly diminished out of Japan. Well, that didn't happen, and we made that decision.
Okay. I talked to your running mate, Governor Bill Weld, yesterday, reminded him he wasn't invited to the VP debate, as I'm reminding you you're not invited to this next debate. But he has said a number of interesting things recently, Governor, more often criticizing Donald Trump, not so much ripping Hillary Clinton. And it just could be me reading between the lines that maybe you and he have such a ill disposition toward Donald Trump that if you had your druthers, you'd prefer Hillary Clinton.
Well, no, I prefer neither one. Going
why
forward,
is he talking like that?
Well, look, beyond my wildest dreams, Bill Weld is my running mate, but I think we do have issues with both. And
well, he seems to have more issues with Trump.
Well,
he'd be more dangerous.
Well, I'll tell you what, Hillary Clinton is going to be very hawkish as President of the United States. Government is going to grow. Our number one issue is the growth of government. A smaller government is a good thing. The Constitution exists to limit the size and scope of government.
Right.
You know, 10 amendments to the Constitution. That's about protecting the minority against the will of the majority.
Do you guys compare notes, like when you go out speaking to the media or yuckmeisters like me, that, all right, I'm going to speak to Cavuto, you're going on ABC. Do you compare notes?
We don't, and I think that's I hope people view that as refreshing. I hope people view that as
you're
honesty.
Like the boss of this ticket, right?
Well, by boss, I'm at the top of the ticket, but
right.
You know what? I'm trusting of Bill Weld, period. Something I said as governor to all my cabinet members was, you can disagree with me every single day of the week in front of the media, as long as you will tell them what my position is on the issue. And you know what? We really don't have any disagreements. Bill and I really don't have any disagreements. And to be scripted, I think that's politics in America.
Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump in a boat. They both fall in the boat, out of the boat. Who are you going to save?
Well, America will be...
Oh, man, what a wimpy answer. What a wimpy answer.
Isn't that a political answer, though?
Governor,
you expected it. But we had breakfast this morning and set that question up.
There you go. See that you would have compared. Cavuto's going to ask the vote question. All right, Governor Johnson, thank you.
Neil,
very,
always
very
thank
much.
you. Thank you.